George Sodder, born Giorgio Soddu in Sardinia, Italy in 1895, immigrated to the United States at age 13 with his brother. Sodder found work in Pennsylvania and later became a truck driver in West Virginia. He started his own trucking company, married Jenny Cipriani, and settled near Fayetteville. They had 10 children. George's business thrived, making them a respected middle-class family. However, conflicts arose due to George's outspoken opposition to Mussolini. Their youngest child, Sylvia, was born in 1942. By then, their second oldest son, Joe, had left home to serve in the military during World War II. In the following year, Mussolini was deposed and executed. George's criticism of the late dictator created some animosity in the community. In October 1945, a life insurance salesman who visited their home and was turned away issued a warning to George. He ominously stated that their house would go up in flames and their children would be harmed. Another visitor, who claimed to be looking for work, took the opportunity to go around to the back of the house and warned George that a pair of fuse boxes would cause his fire someday. This puzzled George because he had recently rewired the house when they installed an electric stove. The local electric company assured him that everything was safe. In the weeks leading up to Christmas that year, George's older sons noticed a strange car parked along the main highway in town. The occupants of the car would watch the younger Sodder children as they returned home from school. On Christmas Eve in 1945, Betty and her 4 siblings, Maurice, Martha, Louise, and Jenny, asked their parents if they could stay up and play with their Christmas toys after the rest of the family went to bed. They promised to complete their chores before going to sleep. The parents agreed to let them stay up. After midnight, the mother, Jenny, received a phone call from an unknown woman who asked to speak to someone Jenny did not know. The caller laughed and hung up, leading Jenny to believe it was a prank call. Before going back to sleep, Jenny noticed that the lights were on, the shades were up, and the doors were unlocked in their home. Later that night, Jenny was awakened by a noise on the roof. At 1:30 a.m., she realized their house was on fire and called out to her husband and children to get out. 2 of the children made it outside, but Maurice, Martha, Louise, Jenny, and Betty were missing. George attempted to find a ladder to reach the children's bedroom, but it disappeared. The ladder was later found down an embankment away from the house. The Sodder house burned down in less than 45 minutes. The fire department initially blamed faulty wiring as the cause. Some reports mention that no trace of the missing children's remains were found in the ashes. Others claim to have discovered bone fragments and possible human organs. One analyzed fragment turned out to be a beef liver. A coroner's jury declared that the missing Sodder children had died in the fire. Despite the fire marshal's advice, George plowed over the remains of their home and planted flowers in memory of their lost children. Within months, George and Jenny became convinced that their children had been kidnapped and the fire set intentionally to cover up the crime. The house's telephone line had been cut before or after the fire. Witnesses reported seeing the children in the area shortly after the fire. The Sodders tried to reopen the case, but the police refused to investigate for many years. They believed no crime had occurred. In 1949, George and others excavated the site of the former home in search of the children's remains. They found 4 pieces of vertebrae and 2 small bones, possibly from a child's hand. A pathologist involved in the search noted the unusual scarcity of remains, considering the quick burning nature of the fire. Pathologists believe the bones belong to a 14 to 15-year-old, matching Maurice's age. However, George doubted they belonged to his son due to their location in the house's floor plan. Another analysis suggested the bones belonged to a 16 to 22-year-old individual. Strangely, the bones showed no signs of fire damage. There was speculation that they had been planted from a nearby cemetery, but there's no evidence to support this theory. In 1968, George and Jenny received a photograph in the mail of a young man in his mid-20s. It was labeled Louis Sodder with the words, "I love brother Frankie," "Ill boys," and A90132 or possibly A90135 written on the back. The Sodders believed it was a picture of their son Louis as an adult, but they cannot verify this. The man in the photo remains unidentified. It's unclear who sent the picture and why. George and Jenny searched for their children for the rest of their lives, even posting a billboard offering a reward for their safe return. George passed away in 1969, Jenny in 1989. Some speculate that the missing children perished in the fire. The parents cannot accept the loss. Some believe the children were abducted and possibly taken to Italy.